start with the adult, work our way back, and just see the global laws showing up, not only in the adult, not only in the child developing its crawl pattern, building its strength in the pattern, but in a baby that is a newborn, moments old, days old, still showing that pattern, and then finally taking it back to, well, what does the embryological perspective, the developmental perspective of this thing have to say? And we will see that they all reflect each other. So this bow and corner behavior is noted in the embryological development of the human body. So the leg is going to coil up, it's going to have a natural spiral inward with the tissue, so that when we set that foot down, we then spiral outward, we load the bow, we load that energy, and then we transfer it back in. So those sort of signatures of the system are there in the embryological development. They are then just kept as we go through child development into adolescence and then into adulthood. That's the ideal here. And that's something that's important to note, not only for the coach, but for the client, is that GOTA is something that it is you. It was already given to you. It's part of the design. It's part of how it's built to work. What we've had happen is we've lost it because of the lifestyle and the environment that comes with that lifestyle, meaning really two things that stand out. We always talk about them: the chair and the shoe have done a significant amount to alter all of us in the way we were built to move. And then obviously we've noted and will note in upcoming modules how the act of lifting, that act being sort of saturated into the nervous system, is going to further sort of put those improper patterns to the front of the cart, if you will, as far as what the nervous system's going to use as a strategy. So when it's kept ideal, we should be able to get it or have it through, adolescence, through child development, through adolescence, then into our adulthood. So it's more of getting something back than it is gaining something new. Although it will feel new, because obviously our nervous systems get, they get comfortable on, for better or for worse, with whatever our patterning is as of late. So let's get right into it. Let's look at GOTA Joe on the right, okay? And I want to analyze Joe's left column. So it's helpful just to remember, talk about the cycle, talk about the cadence, think about the cadence, think about the rhythm. Much like the cardiovascular system has its pulse, has its rhythm that is healthy, the musculoskeletal system has its pulse, has its rhythm that is healthy. And we've identified that to be a loading of the pressure, a transfer, and then a release and a reset. And so as we enter into this specific stride, we're looking at Joe's left side. We'll note that he's pretty much in the reset. Okay, he's ready to touch down and drop that left leg into the ground. And once he does, he loads his bow. So there's that look of the bow, inside ankle bone high. We have the nice wave shape in the system. So we load our bow right here. Then we go ahead and we transfer the energy through the corner. So you see the bow loaded up. We see that structure holding strong as all the pressure is building into this column. And then we're going to go ahead up, around, and in and transfer that pressure. And here comes the part where we go through that transfer. So just note sort of a few areas here with your eyes. Note this area. Note right here on the pelvis. And then note the thigh bone. So watching that thigh bone, watching the pelvis, and watching sort of the lumbar segments play is going to give me that sort of up, around, and in indicator. And I can kind of trace the scrubber back and forth from load to transfer. And we can see how the inner ankle bone stays high, and then it climbs even higher as we go to transfer. So keep the inside ankle bone high on the load, even higher as we transfer. That leads into our release, which then leads into our reset. And there we are, back again over on the left side where we started. So we retrace into the start, reset, drop in, load, transfer, release, reset. Okay, and so that's the cycle. It's all built to deal with pressure waves. We know that we want to handle these pressure waves with a decompressed structure. That's where inside ankle bone high and back chain dominance comes in. when we're inside ankle bone high and back chain dominance, the ball and sockets want to trace this, as we call it, a down, back, and out, up, around, and in. Down, back, out, up, around, and in. So that down, back, out loads, the up, around, and in transfers. Then it just has to release and reset in the air to do it all over again. Now, let's take a look at the crawling baby. And you'll see the baby kind of already set in a bow on this left side. So we're going to have that sort of same look of just watching the left side. And you'll notice how quick the bow in the corner happens in the baby. You can even see some of the action from the shin moving the heel away as the reset leg starts to move forward. So when you're looking at the crawl, you're looking at a very short stride. It's a little version of the adult, obviously. So the limbs are shorter. The strides happen quick. The bows and corners are fast. So there's your bow, there's your corner, and it's done. So bow, corner. You can really get a view for it with the spine kind of snapping and waving in this direction. So you have this, and then it snaps over in this direction with the whole column, boom. And we can see the shoulder work, spine work, hip, ankle real quickly work, up, around, and in. Then it's going to release and reset over the top. And so it's trying to reform its bow right there. As then we then load up on this side, load the bow, corner, load the bow, corner. Okay, then we go over here, and let's take a look at a newborn baby, sort of right out of the wrapper, and you'll see it do the same thing. So this is in water. We're going to see a few clips of a episode of what was called Babies, a documentary on Netflix, episode 3, a lady by the name of Marianne Barbu Roth. And this is kind of where this work or this image on the left comes from. She was studying the infant, or should I say the newborn, the moments after birth when it would make that first move towards its first feeding. And she was noticing a pattern. And so she kind of wanted to study that pattern a little bit more, but she was noticing that there is something that it does naturally. And that's the walk, it's the bow to corner. And so she had some very interesting ways of studying it. One of them was, one of her thoughts was, well, the fetus is in this womb, right, which is like liquid. So it's weightless in the sense that we know that the baby is kicking. And so if you've even looked at sort of underneath the hood of those images of a baby kicking, you see that it has force, right? It is going through that bow and corner cycle that you're going to see right here in this baby's column. So you see the right side load up, and then it kicks. And that's just the bow and the corner. So the right side loads up the bow. You can even see the left side stretch into its corner, and then it just snaps and sends it over to the other side. And then we've got our bow over here, and then we snap and send it over back to the other side. So it's that bow and corner action back and forth that is always there, right? It's always there. It's the kick of the baby in the womb. The baby comes out of the womb. Well, now it's not in liquid. Now it's dealing with gravity. We do have a bigger head than most. So now the head is heavy. The body is weak in relation to the head as it pertains to the gravity that's working on it. So now the baby its movement seems to go dormant for like 6 to 8 months. Well, that's when the baby is sort of feeding, getting stronger, and it's just the movement pattern's always there. The engine's good. The body needs to be worked on. So it's much like a car going into the shop. The engine's fine. It's not what it's here for. The body needs to be cleaned up. The body takes work. It takes 6 to 8 months to clean everything up and get it ready to roll. And then you put that thing down. The engine's just ready to purr, ready to go. So same idea is with the baby. It's built into the embryo. It's built into that sort of process. It's there for the baby inside the womb when it's kicking, and then it's inside that crawling pattern. There's just that period of time where it seems like, it needs to learn these things. No, it just needs to get stronger to use what it already has, which is a bow and corner system. So now, if we back out of here and we kind of look at one more example, you'll see the same thing. So we have once again, fresh out of the wrapper, bow to corner, just to show you that similarity to an adult. Same idea, right? We've seen the same thing. Head goes into the column, side bend, inside ankle bone high, out to in, right? So the leg is a spring, and it's going to load up on the out and then transfer on the in, okay? And so here's the work that some of the other work that Marianne Barbu Roth did, where she showed when she accounted for the weight of the head that the baby is going through that pattern. So there you see the heel away. You can even see how the little skateboard thing here actually goes with the corner. So the math is there, 22.5 to 45. So we got it pointing out. And then we go ahead and we point it in. And so there's that pattern showing up again, okay? If we look closely at the foot, you can see that four-toe crease kind of being that heel away action, heel going up and away. Okay, so that's I think a 2-day-old baby, 1-day-old baby. But just to show that when we account for the weight of the head, the pattern is always there. And then we take a step back, we kind of look at the embryological perspective, one more step back to the baby in the womb a few days prior, and you'll see that it's kind of folded up into this situation where it's double inside ankle bone high. It's that fetal tuck position that we're essentially laying down in child rockers, or that we're laying on the side of it inside fetal when we're resting. But you can see the part that's highlighted there, and this is from Muscles and Meridians by Philip Beach. So what it's basically saying is that the hind limb is coiled, right? So like a spring type system, and that system is going to have a spiral inward, such that when we spiral outward, which is our bow, we take the slack out of the system. We wind up the Achilles tendon as it's designed. We wind up that fascia, and then we can snap back inward to where it was, originally designed, and we can release that energy. So just like a pogo stick, just coiling and uncoiling. The coiling would be the bow. The uncoiling would be the corner. And so now you take it one step further, and this would sort of be the image of, okay, now it's in embryo, it's developing, it's in a developing process. The spine will be the first to develop, and then the limb buds will emerge from there. And as you can see on the bottom, it's hinting at or showing you that internally sort of rotated, that cornered structure of that. And then you can just see the down, back out, up, around, and in of the leg. And that's the bow and corner that we eventually get to here with Go to Joe. When we go back and look at that first thing that we load, there's my bow. So if I'm loading up what we just saw in that image, well, it's got to go this way, right? It's got to go down, back, and out. And that's the trip part, is I'm going down, back, and out to load to go forward. Well, that's because it's a spring-like system. We look at that Achilles tendon and how it's wound up. We've got to twist it outward to take the slack out and to make it secure. Well, the foot's got to hold still to allow the shin to twist, which would be the Achilles twisting to load up, and then the thigh's got to be in heart. And you can just see how you play that game of understanding the foot and understanding the shin. Really what's going on here makes everything make more sense, because now I can see, down, back, out, up, around, and in, release and reset over the top. And it's there in your crawling development, but it's there the day of birth, because it's actually there in your embryological development, right? It's built into sort of how the whole system comes to be, okay? And so it's not something that you have to build. It's something that we have to get back. And so these are concepts that are, at one point, they were familiar to us. Now, that being said, the decode process can start right away as well. So I've seen children that are decoded very early from a weird shoe, a weird sitting device. It's all around you. If you start to look at the sitting and the shoes and the clothing and how that plays out in a baby's life, I mean, they're in a car seat day one. They're already tail forward, crown back. So you can just start to look at the different situations that are out there that are going to jeopardize this natural development that would have been, once again, always kind of go back to that Karubo mindset, or that visual of, okay, if it's in the wild, it's butt naked, barefoot, and nothing touches it as far as shoes, chairs, training, like, what's it going to look like? Well, it's going to keep all that. It's going to keep what it has. We just needed to see that it was always there. And if we just look at sort of the work that Philip Beach has done, where he's showing the embryological perspective, or then you look at one step further when the baby is out of the wrapper and in the real world as far as movement goes, now you see the work that Marianne Barbu-Roth has done, to where you can kind of still see that pattern showing itself if we look close enough in those early moments, and with a little bit, to help us see the change as far as control goes when the baby has to play in this gravity environment. And then you see it in that crawling, that 6 to 8 month after, when it gets into the crawling. And then when we get to keep it, or we bring it back, we see like a Go to Joe. We see a Randy Moss, and Ed Reed, a Michael Jordan. So we're just looking at a pattern over time that was meant to be kept, but obviously when you interject a chair, a shoe, and training stimulus, or interject a new environment that's going to do more of what? Create compression overall, tail forward, crown back, crooked foot, inside ankle bone low is the culprit of taking those ball and sockets out of that decompressed system. Now the spring system doesn't work like it should. It's too compressed, can't open and close, and that's kind of what we saw in some of that Goto Wota comparison, where you start to see when it's trying to do that bow and corner action, it's just too compressed. So our goal is, once again, get people to be aware of where they are currently, and then start that decompression process. Be super focused on inner ankle bone high. Be super focused on back chain dominance, meaning the foot platform and how it's behaving, and then the tail to crown relationship is going to be the starting point in everything I do, because that will allow the system to just naturally feed the ball and sockets into the bow and then around the corner. And then we're just releasing and resetting and doing it all over again. Remember, there is a cadence to the musculoskeletal system. There's a rhythm to it, just like there would be in any other system in the body.